Thank you very much, Mordechai and Raya, for hosting this special edition of the Kabbalah Café. Since we're getting really close to Pesach, I wanted to make a special effort of doing the Kabbalah Café, even though today also is extremely busy day. But Kabbalah Café is something which is close to my heart, and I wanted to make sure that we do it. A very beautiful interpretation for the Seder that you'll be able to use, and for Pesach. Would like to thank Gershom and Rachel Dandy for sponsoring this Kabbalah Café in honor of the Refuah Shalema of their grandchildren, Malachi Ben Dan. Just give me one moment and I'm going to get the other names. I just need one second. Isaac and Tiana, I hope I said the names correctly. Everybody should have Refuah Shalema, each one in whatever they need. And Bashkacha Pratit, Divine Providence, today's Kabbalah Café is connected with children. And so one of the highlights of the Seder is V'higada Talavincha. We need to tell a story to our children. And that is, we do many things during the Seder in order to keep the children up, keep them interested, and we have to tell them the story. Right towards the beginning of the Seder, we do the 4 questions. In the 4 questions, we start with the children, and they ask the questions. They want to know why tonight is different than all other nights of the year. And there are 4 questions. And we're going to try to explain these 4 questions on a deeper level than they're usually understood to be in the simple level. The 4 questions are as follows. I'm going to go according to the Chabad order. It's a little bit of a different order. We could talk about why another time at Be'ezrat Hashem. And the first question is, why do we not usually have the concept of dipping? And tonight we dip twice. Once the karpas in salt water, and the other time maror, the bitter herbs, in charoset, in the little mix of the applesauce, so to speak. The second question is, why every night do we have chametz or matzah? And tonight we only have matzah. The third question is, why do we have every night any kind of vegetables? And tonight we have bitter herbs. And the fourth question is, why every night, every day do we eat either sitting or leaning? And tonight we eat only leaning. And so here's the question. Before we explain the 4 questions on a deeper level, let's first explain the general concept. Why is this night different than all other nights? Even before we get into the details, how they're different, just explaining the main question itself. What's the question? The question is, the deeper question, of course, that is that now we're in Galut. Galut is night. Night is darkness, the opposite of revelation. And so it's clear to us, it's clear to every child that we are in a galut, we're in a bitter galut. And so, how is this galut different than any other galut? We're the 4th of all of the galuyot, exiles, which began with Galut Mitzrayim, the exile of Mitzrayim. I'm sorry, the exile, the Galut of Mitzrayim. So, what does it mean that how is it that this galut is different than all other galuyot? How is it that this exile is different than all other exiles? Now let's get into the details. What's the first question? The first question is, how is it possible? How come? How come every other night we don't have any specific concept of dipping per se, and tonight we dip twice? What does that mean? What is the idea of dipping? Dipping is making something pure. For example, a mikvah. When someone goes into the mikvah, they become pure. Just one moment, please. And so, up until now, we haven't really had the idea of purification because all the while we've still been in galut. Now, there are 2 types of purification. One purification is from the body, and one purification is from the neshama. And tonight we dip twice. And even a child can understand this, because the children are asking this question. Even when there's no children, the adults ask the question, but it's mainly focused on the children. So a child understands that if they, for example, God forbid, ate something not kosher, so that's their body needs to have a purification. If God forbid they forgot to say the Shema, then the neshama needs to have a purification. And so when Mashiach comes, which will be the day, as opposed to now, which is nighttime, spiritually speaking, so then the child notices now that we're coming closer, we're acting in a royal, in a kingly fashion, we're inching towards Mashiach's coming. So the child realizes that, wow, now is different than all other previous experiences, because all of a sudden now we're preparing ourselves, we're getting ready for a complete redemption. And that's something which is really exciting to the child. The next question is about the chametz and the matzah. The chametz represents a person who is an egotist, and just like chametz rises with the yeast, unlike the matzah, which the matzah is a thin cracker, and it represents someone who is selfless and doesn't feel himself to be any big shot at all. And so the child asks, every night during the galut and wherever we are, we see people that are like chametz, and we see people that are matzah. But tonight, the Seder night, all we eat is matzah. We all aspire to be humble and to be more receptive to holy matters, and that inspires the child to want to understand not only why is this night different than any other nights, how can we keep this going? How can we continue the message of Pesach throughout the entire year and beyond? Then we're up to the third question. The third question is, how come every night we have all kinds of vegetables, but tonight and the night of Pesach we focus on the bitter herbs? So here's a little bit of a twist, but as you'll see, even a child can understand it. In the simple meaning, the bitter herbs are a sad thing, and not a royal thing, which is true in the basic interpretation. But here's something a little deeper. When you have something in life, and then you get something better than the previous thing, which may have been good at first glance, becomes almost like a secondary. Sometimes even considered something to be simple, even perhaps negative, because the new thing that you have might be so good, so outstanding, that all of a sudden, whatever you had beforehand, is considered to be peanuts, is considered to be a bitter herbs, so to speak. And so the child is sitting by the Seder table and sees that we are acting so royal. So he says, all of the nights of the entire year, all of my previous experiences have been good. Shar yirakot, regular vegetables. But tonight, we are acting so royal on the night of Pesach, the night of Passover. We're acting so special. So the child can say to himself, wow. So basically, everything else, all the other good things that I've had until now, are like maror, are like bitter. But now, it's going to be good. Now it's great, because we're acting so royal. So we're basically taking the third question, and we're turning it over from a negative thing into a positive thing. I think that's such a beautiful message. And the Rebbe explains that the Rambam writes that a child gets reward for what they do. So let's say they get a candy, or they get a little bit of a larger allowance, or whatever it is. Whenever they get something better, the child himself understands that whatever they had earlier might be considered like maror. Maybe maror is a little bit of an extreme terminology, but the concept the child should understand. So therefore, the child sitting at a Seder table, feeling so royal, realizes that all the goodies and treats that they've had earlier is almost like peanuts. But really, now is the real stuff, and the child wants to see the continuation. He doesn't want to go back to the previous state. And so, therefore, our job leading this Seder should be along these lines, as we'll see in a moment, of how can we continue the royalty that we've experienced during the Seder. And finally, the fourth question is, why all year do we eat both sitting or leaning? And on the night of Pesach, we eat only leaning. Everyone understands, including a child, that both sitting and leaning are a sense of relaxing, menucha, of relaxing. But even when someone is sitting, it could be at some stage they might be tired. They want to lay down. In other words, laying down is more of a relaxing state than sitting. And so this is what we ask on the night of the Seder. We say all year we have different types of relaxing. Sometimes we relax a little more. Sometimes we relax a little less. But tonight we see that we're all leaning. We're like kings. We're leaning to the side. We're royal. When Mashiach comes, it's going to be the ultimate relaxing. The ultimate tranquility is the great word. And so the child realizes, everyone around the table realizes, but I'm specifically focusing on the child because the Seder is built around the children of every family. And so therefore the child realizes, wow, this is really special. This is not just like any other Seder. It's not just like any other experience. Wow, I see over here that everyone is acting really royal. Not also sitting and also leaning per se, but we're for the most part of it, we're all leaning. We all feel special. And so how is it that up until now we have not been acting like this, and now we're more tranquil, we're more royal, we're more at peace with ourselves, and we're able to experience Kedusha, holiness, in a more meaningful way. And so now we have all four questions. What's the common denominator between all four questions? The common denominator is that we realize that now is galut, now is night, it's exile. Spiritually speaking, it's dark. And we realize that we are in the final exile. Very, very soon, hopefully today, this moment, we will merit the coming of Mashiach. And so therefore, as we're preparing for the Seder night, we want to prepare ourselves. Hopefully Mashiach will come even before the Seder night, and we'll be able to experience the Seder night together with Mashiach right here in Jerusalem, Bezrat Hashem in Yerushalayim. But until that moment, in the last final moments of Galut, it's our obligation, as we started sharing in this class, our obligation to tell those that are around us at the table, whether they're adults or children, the answer for these four questions. What is the answer? The first few words of the Haggadah, which, by the way, we'll say also Shabbat afternoon, because Shabbat Hagadol, Avadim hayinu lefaro b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves to King Pharaoh in Mitzrayim in Egypt. Vayotzienu Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem took us out, misham biyad chazakah, uvizro netuyah, with a strong and outstretched arm, with a strong hand. And so therefore we tell the child as follows. We tell those sitting around us at the Seder table all together. What do we say? That this galut, this exile, is different than the galut of Mitzrayim. The galut, the exile of coming out of Egypt, when we experienced the Exodus, then it was nice, but it was only a temporary redemption. It was not, unfortunately, a permanent redemption. So what we need to remember, all of us sitting around the table, and if someone is sitting alone at the Seder table, you ask yourselves the question. And then you give yourselves the answer based on what it says in the Haggadah, that no worries. This redemption that we're going to experience very soon is going to be different than all other redemptions, because this redemption is a redemption which will be permanent. So no worries, there's no reason to be concerned. And this is an opportunity for us to continue our preparations for Pesach, for the Seder and for the rest of Pesach. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you, Bezrat Hashem. Anybody that wants to volunteer tomorrow morning, right here in Jerusalem, starting Thursday morning, 8 o'clock a.m., to prepare meals for families over here in Jerusalem, that'll be a great honor. And send me a WhatsApp message, and I'll tell you where to be at 8 o'clock. I really, really appreciate it. It's a great mitzvah that you come even for a half hour or an hour or 5 hours, whatever you can. If you have friends that can come, that will also be great. We really need a lot of volunteers. And of course, we'll see you Bezrat Hashem Friday night for Shabbat davening near Chabad of Rechavia, and then Shabbat morning at 6:30 a.m. Yes, 6:30 a.m. so we can finish eating the chametz at the right time. And of course, I wish everyone to have a true redemption, both a personal chedut, both a personal freedom, and also a communal for all of Am Yisrael. We should all together in the entire world, we should all, once and for all, we should experience a true redemption, each and every one of us.